Hello everyone, welcome to this video where we will be looking at this idea about congruent figures. Okay, and what exactly is congruent figures? So in the Singapore context, there's this particular building called the Esplanade. Well, if we take a closer look at the triangular spikes on the roof of the esplanade, what do we notice? Yep, they are triangle in shape and they are all of the same shape and size. Okay? So to put it simply, the definition for congruent figures, two figures are said to be congruent if they are of the same shape and size. Okay? Alright. So now let's take a look at this example where we have two triangles where we are given that the corresponding sides are equal and the corresponding angles are equal. How do I put that in mathematical statements? Well, in the world of these congruent figures, there's one more thing I wish to highlight, which would be that the vertices or the points should be matched when we write the mathematical statements. Now, what do I mean by that? So from here, this is what I will do. I will actually color code the corresponding vertices. B and Q, C and R. Now, then, this allow me to do certain things. So if I were to say AB, then I would have to write it as AB equals to PQ, where A and P, B and Q. The order that we write the length now matters in the world of congruence. Okay? If I were to say, talk about BC, the letter B, the vertex B and Q match with each other. C and R. So B to C, BC is equals to QR. And by extension, C and R, CA. If I were to write it as CA, then this will be equals to RP. Okay? Of course, this extend to the angles, where I would then have B to Q. If I'm talking about BAC, A and P, C and R in this order that I write. Angle, if I'm talking about angle, ACB written in A to C to B, A to C to B. If you look at the color, it will be blue, green, red. Then I will have to be P to R to Q in that same order. Okay? Same goes for if I were to write it as ABC, angle A, B, C. Then I will have to start off with P, Q, and R. And therefore, the triangles are congruent. When we write it, we also have to write it in a particular order. If I were to write it in A, B, C, then I also must be P, Q, R. Okay? Of course, there's another way to write this down, yeah, for the sides at least, and the angles. Okay, that means another way of writing would then be, of course, if I choose to write it as BA, then this must be equals to QP. I must write it in this way. In the same order. Okay, if I choose to write it as C, the length C to B, then I must start with R, then to Q. By extension, of course, if I choose to write it as AC, then I have to write it as PR. Same goes for the angle. So if I were to write it as angle CAB, then it will have to be angle RPQ. And so I'm going to just make a copy of this and put it up at the side here. So that I would have some space to just write it. Okay. So as I mentioned, if I were to write it as angle CAB, then I will have to, the corresponding angle would then have to be written as RPQ. Okay, and if I were to write it as angle BCA, then the corresponding angle will have to be written as QRP. And for the last corresponding angles, if I were to write it as angle CBA, then the corresponding angle would have to be written as RQP. Alright? And that's what I meant by make sure that the vertices are matched. And so, let's have a very quick summary. First, what we have went through is that the symbol, this symbol here, is read as congruent to, and the order in which the vertices of one figure are written must correspond to that of the vertices of the other figure. And so, we could write triangle ABC is congruent to triangle PQR. We can also, since we just need to make sure that the points are corresponding to each other, then there are actually two different ways of writing this also. If I were to write it as triangle BAC, then I will have to write it as triangle QPR. This works as well. And of course, by extension, if I were to start off with CBA, then I will have to write the corresponding congruent triangle as RQP. So point number 4 is simply to take note that we cannot write triangle ABC, blue, red, green, is congruent to triangle PRQ, because the angle ABC is not equal to angle PRQ. That the order of the vertices must match. Okay, and the sides AC corresponds to PR, side AB corresponds to PQ, and side PBC corresponds to QR. Okay, and so the corresponding sides and angles of congruent figures are equal. All right. And finally, in conclusion, when two figures are congruent, they are identical in shape and size, which means that all the corresponding sides are equal and all the corresponding angles are equal, regardless of their orientation.